All right, guys, welcome to the first ever episode of the Real Papa Gut podcast. And for those of you who have been following along for a while, this is not the first episode of the Real Papa Gut podcast. This is actually, I guess, like a restart of the podcast. We have a few episodes on a podcast-specific channel. It died out a while back. But we've decided to bring it back and put it on the main channel. This way everybody can consume it and you guys can love it. And then, everybody will be very happy. Now, for those of you who don't know, the point of the Real Papa Gut podcast and the reason why it's called the Real Papa Gut podcast is because this is the, I guess, the methodology or the whatever, what would you call it? My flow?
I'd say your method, how you get to develop your thoughts.
Yes, and that's by talking to her. This is Mama Gut. We have done this for a long time, since the inception of my TikTok. We would discuss a lot of the social and political issues together, and we would come out the other side with a really good take, and that's why I'm a big famous Papa Gut, the cool guy. But it's one of those things where it's like 95% me, 5% her, and that.
Maybe 70-30.
Yeah. 70-30. Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, this is the process. So this process is a little more raw than usual. My takes aren't refined, and neither are hers. We sometimes we agree on some things, and then sometimes we claw it out a little bit. But it always comes out to have like a really good take. So this is like the raw, gritty fight that we're going to have. Sometimes fight that we're going to have. And, that's where you're going to see some more ignorance than you usually do. For some of you, you might be like, wow, how's that possible? But it is. Anyway, today, we both wanted to talk about the hashtag Free Britney movement, which, of course, for any of you guys who are like 25 and up, you'll know Britney Spears is insane.
No, she's not. She's a 90s pop star.
Okay.
Teenage pop star. Started out on the Mickey Mouse Club. Transitioned into being a solo pop artist. Yep.
Is that it?
I guess so.
I thought you were going to have more. Yeah, so that happened. Now, we watched the documentary. We've kind of kept up on some of the notes and some of the situation going on, which is really messed up, actually. And we wanted to talk about it because it's crazy. So this whole thing... We'll start from the beginning to give you a little bit of a recap. But basically, like she said, Britney Spears was a big famous child, and it started very young, which, by the way, I think we're already off to a bad start. I have been saying for a while now that this generation is like a social experiment for social media and YouTube, and it's having an impact on a lot more people now. But last generation, there were a couple of young people who were really being like impacted by, paparazzi culture. I think is the biggest thing that we're going to talk about here.
Paparazzi fame and I think a lack of family or parental supervision, because even if you think about Michael Jackson, that stuff was messed up, but it was a family unit doing that.
Yeah, so that was a loaded kind of. Yeah, okay, all right.
I'm saying the difference, a lot of famous young people used to be I guess their families were more involved to a certain extent. You go back to Shirley Temple, she wasn't. Shirley Temple actually wound up being a teen mom at 16 and stuff. Oh, wow. So I would just say historically, child stars are always messed up to some capacity.
Yeah, sure, and it makes sense. I mean, the impact of of just having a lot of attention, and then at times not having a lot of attention, and there's a whole thing there. I know when you brought Michael Jackson, you were talking about the negative impact of a broken family having on Britney Spears. And it seems like she had a bit of a rough childhood. Her father is the big central point here too, where the claim is that a lot of her what would you say, frustrations, or a lot of her insanity, is that what you want to say, or a lot of her mentality comes from him.
Well, yeah, just to, the main idea of this is right now she's in a conservatorship. This conservatorship has been established, I think, for 13 years now.
Yeah.
And
she's 40 now.
Yeah, and she has, I believe it's 2 people in charge of all of her stuff, and one of them is her father. And I said the thing about the family. Britney Spears, when this conservatorship was established, she had said that she Not, I don't know if she said she was okay with the conservatorship, but she specifically did not want her father.
Yeah, right. So just so you guys know, a conservatorship is basically when somebody controls, depending on how intense it is, controls you. Can be just your finances, it can be you, it can be a lot of different things. So right now, her dad and I think some other guy, they run all of her decisions like in her entire life. Like it's an insane amount. As a 40-year-old,
the system is usually put in place for someone that has like dementia or something. So someone that, you know, used to be able to care for themselves and for some reason has lost that independence. So when it comes to Britney, her father and the other guy are specifically in charge of her finances, her business,
or everything.
Yeah.
I think even her kids.
I don't. Yes and no, but I feel like that's something that we could get into.
Right. So the whole reason that they're in a conservatorship, it stems from two big things. Obviously, her being a child star, and her having like a meltdown. But then also there was I forget what the guy's name was, but they mentioned it in the documentary. I found it was interesting. They kind of glossed over it. There was this weird fucking guru. Was it Sam whatever, and he was apparently encouraging her to make really poor financial decisions, and so they did this whole conservatorship because what happened is that very clearly the situation she was engaged in was very stressful on her emotionally, and once she had like her meltdown, Sam kind of seemed to have swept in and then kind of tried to get control over her in some capacity to get her to buy things, and you know, I don't know, maybe he was just trying to live life.
Well, I was going to say, where do you even want to get started?
You don't even need all that money. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning because the beginning seemed to be, well, if we start at the very beginning, they mentioned a lot about her dad being controlling and a little bit, I don't know if they would say abusive, but controlling, and I think he had an alcohol problem.
Well, I would start even before that, so I think it's important to acknowledge.
If you want to start at the beginning, you know, we can watch, you know, the two of them were doing a little bit of that. Then Britney was born.
They're gonna cut that.
I'm not gonna cut that. Anyway, continue. I don't know how to edit videos.
So, I would say that like you could see where like her family dynamic started, where she started to audition for shows, and then she had to go to New York. That's where she was going to find her success. And her younger sister Jamie at the time was in first grade, so her parents hired her some type of chaperone. I forget the exact language they used. I know what you're talking about.
But to like go on tour with her, right?
Exactly. Her parents stayed in, where are they from?
I don't remember.
I can't think of it right now.
It's a southern state. I don't remember what it is. It's like, you know, a nice old-fashioned country, you know, God-fearing religious belt kind of state.
Her parents stayed in their hometown with her younger sister, and Britney went and, you know, traveled and worked with this woman. Her father, they mentioned that he had an alcohol problem. He was abusive, I believe. And he also had a lot of different jobs, like running different businesses that always continued to fail. So her father wasn't really involved in her life at all growing up.
Right. I'm trying to find. Yeah, right. And like, it's very interesting because the way that they portray the father is obviously very negatively, and part of that's because obviously she doesn't like her father, and there's probably a justifiable reason. But I think, I don't know. I know this is where we disagree a little bit. I'm almost empathetic towards the father a little bit. I mean, you have a guy, obviously, trying to take care of his family, at least in the beginning. Very heavy focus on money. I know that's one of the things that they focus on how greedy he is. Where he was running through a bunch of businesses. They were failures. He had I think he had an alcohol problem. You know, he was a problem. He was controlling. And to an extent, some of those things, like being a little controlling, sometimes people are just that way. I know that sounds shitty, but not everything is to a point of abuse. And so I don't know. I think that this is a conversation to have. I know that you guys are going to hate me for it, but I don't know that he was necessarily being abusive in this situation.
I'm going to change your mind when we get there. Okay. So
I believe you.
Brittany had her chaperone.
I just need to express my interpretation on it first, and then I'm very open to change. But as a man, I can kind of identify with a little bit of it, enough for me to be like, listen, I have a couple questions, you know.
So Britney got very famous.
Mississippi, I think they're from.
Okay. She got very famous. She was very sexualized. I believe the Oops, I Did It Again video, I believe she was only 16 when that video came out. You know, in the documentary we watched, they're asking her, when she goes on interviews, there's grown men asking her about her breasts. They're asking her about losing her virginity.
In like a real, well, I mean, there's really no way to not do that in a creepy fucking way.
A lot of interviews she did, it seems like she was trying to establish her power, saying that she's in control of everything that she does. And, you know, I think that to a certain degree, like, that makes a lot of sense because she lacked a parental figure throughout her career as a young person.
Right.
Then everything happened with Justin Timberlake, and she was very young. And then she was, what is the word, like vilified?
Yeah, well, see, that's the interesting thing about the Justin Timberlake situation is that they got together, you know, they did a little smooching and hand-holding. And then I don't remember what happened, but it didn't work out.
So, you know, it depends, like, on whose team you're on. Okay. But, you know, the song Cry Me a River is about Britney cheating on Justin. But if you're, you know, like a real Britney fan, like, Justin cheated on her first. All right?
Okay. All right. Now, I'm just curious. What the fuck are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
I don't know any of this. Who cheated on who with what?
Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears were together.
Yeah.
The song Cry Me a River.
Yeah. Who did Britney Spears cheat on him with?
I forget his name. Dwayne something or something?
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just gonna go with that.
I don't know.
The Rock was fucking.
She cheated on him with someone, but it's also rumored that he cheated on her first. But then, so the reason why Britney gets vilified is because, you know, she was the all-American girl. Like, she would always say that she was gonna, you know, wait till marriage to have sex and everything.
Did she really cheat on him?
And then, maybe. I mean, think about it. They were teenagers.
I mean, what does cheating mean to teenagers? Did they actually sleep together? They were holding hands? Like, what did it mean to be cheating on you? You know what I mean?
I don't know. Like, but they were young, and it's like you don't stay with the first person you're with. Sorry to break your hearts.
Sure.
But, so, anywho, she was, you know, proclaimed to be the all-American girl, like, saving herself for marriage. And then Justin did an interview where they asked if he slept with her, and he said yes. And then there was magazine covers.
Right, and then that made him look like a Chad. By the way, it's actually interesting. At the time, and it's hard for us to, like, remember this, but at the time, Justin Timberlake was seen as, like a feminine man who was, like, invalidated for being feminine. And so this was his turning point of, like, oh, dude, nice, sick bro. Like, this was his man point, where it's like, oh, he fucked Britney Spears? What an awesome guy. Fist bump. And meanwhile, he was seen as a cool guy for fucking her, and then she was seen as a whore for fucking him. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting because, like, that, I mean, that's just dumb.
I mean, it's especially dumb because if you think about it, her as a child, as like a 16-year-old, was praised for being so sexualized. But once it came to actually evidence, I say with quotes, evidence of actual sexual acts, she became a whore, and everyone hated her.
Like,
for
everybody
it.
Wanted to think, every adult man wanted to think a child was cute until she actually did the thing that they were, you know, thought she was so hot for. It's just gross in general that she was so sexualized.
So that's when I would say everything started to go downhill.
For sure. I
and
think so as well.
You know, if there's any older people watching this, and I don't mean older, like I'm 26, like our age, like, you know,
I'm 31. I don't know what you're talking about.
You like learn like your first relationship is different than the next one, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, you kind of build off of each relationship and move
so
forward.
Britney and Justin, that was their like first love relationship. So then after Justin, Britney got with Kevin Federline.
Oh God.
Kevin Federline was this hot douchebag backup dancer, and she was living life with him, you know, like, you know, after your first breakup, like, everyone goes through their hoe phase.
Yeah, you're about to say your hoe phase.
Your hoe phase. She was having fun. She's out. She's smoking cigarettes. She's drinking. She's wearing like what was that popular brand back then? It started with the V, like the trucker hats. Like, she was being like trashy, but she's from Mississippi, and like,
right, yeah, she was
having her hoe phase.
And that's the thing, though, is that people back then, you weren't allowed to be a person. So, like, nobody was like, oh yeah, Britney's just going through her hoe phase. It's like, oh my God, Britney is disgusting.
Yeah, you know? But that's the thing too, is that Britney was held to such a higher standard as well because she was like positive. The girl.
Yes.
Like, I was explaining that to you, how it differs from today, like TikTok. Like, there's so
Everybody's
many people famous
today.
on TikTok. Like, Charlie D'Amelio has a drink at Dunkin' Donuts. I would say that most people don't know who Charli D'Amelio
Honestly,
is.
a lot of people don't know who she
But
is.
Britney was everything. It was either Britney or Christina, and Christina never met Britney. Britney had perfume. She had hair products. She had rollerblades. She was like
she was like fucking Barbie. Like everybody knows who
she
Barbie
had Britney
is.
Barbie is.
But
There was a Barbie for every single music video she did.
Yeah, right. Well, right. So that's the point, though, is that like today, people. First of all, Britney was more famous than like anybody today. But then also, we mix that in with the paparazzi, which is a huge point, I think, of her frustrations. The paparazzi culture was was very heavily culled, very heavily tamed by like fucking Instagram. Like Instagram allowed you to put out into the public what you wanted to put out into the public, and so it allowed celebrities to go like, "Hey, look at this part of my life," and people are like, "Oh, cool, I'm gonna follow Instagram."
And no one's buying tabloids,
right?
anymore.
Less of like bloodthirsty shit, which is really good for celebrities. Of course, there's a side of Instagram that's bad as well, where a lot of people, especially celebrities, but in general, people put out the best version of their life. They don't show you the worst. It sets a lot of like frustrations up for young kids. They have unrealistic expectations. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But at the time, she was getting hit by the paparazzi, and every little thing that she did was like a huge problem. Like, right? So she was going through her hoe phase. Very traditional. Everybody does it. But that was seen as like, oh my God, gross.
It was seen as, oh my God, gross. Now, I would say, I don't know if everyone has it, Britney, but I would say that almost every straight girl has a Kevin Federline. Every girl has that douchebag that you were running around, you know, doing trashy things with.
I was that douchebag.
No, you weren't.
Okay, I wasn't the douchebag. Okay, fuck me.
You're past the douchebag. That's
okay.
a good thing.
All right.
But she wound up getting knocked up and marrying him.
Rest in peace.
And that's what makes it different.
I thought she was a virgin when we met.
Britney Spears?
I'm just move forward as a joke.
You're gonna make me die. So she married Kevin and got pregnant. And that's when
Did she get married first or get pregnant first?
She was married, and then they announced the pregnancy afterwards. So,
so she might have gotten.
I don't know. I haven't like looked at that.
She may have missed a period, and then maybe they were like, "Hey, let's get married." It doesn't even matter because you know what? That's not super unpopular nowadays.
So that's when paparazzi got really in her shit. Was after the birth of her child.
Yeah, and that's
when you saw pictures of her driving with her baby on her lap.
And that was an interesting one because I watched that, and she like had her baby on her lap, and then she was driving away, which sounds terrible, but she was in a parking lot, and the paparazzi were all over. Like I'm just gonna be honest with you, if there were like 20 people banging on my fucking outside of my car, and I have a kid in the car. Right, your baby's crying. What's your first reaction? This baby is in trouble. I got to get out of the situation because you're pissing the baby off. So she drove over with the kid on her lap. Is it legal? No. Should you do that? No. But you also probably shouldn't swarm somebody's car like a rabid fucking animal just for some pictures of her with her kid. I probably would have got out of the car and started swinging a bat. And I don't think that that's a unique perspective.
No, it's not. And, it's something
especially
that
with
she
your kids
did
in the
later.
car.
Like I think right now we're focusing on the paparazzi thing. So there was that where she just wanted to get the fuck out of there with her baby.
Yeah,
I find it completely acceptable.
100%. I think it's very normal. Well, it's not normal because fucking paparazzi is not normal. But I think I think that like it's not a good thing to do. But given the situation, like, do you blame her?
No. So then she has her second kid, and shortly after, literally I think it was like 2 weeks after or something, she files for divorce from Kevin.
It's fucked up. Why?
I don't know,
probably
but it's also not important.
Probably because Kevin was a loser. Kevin Federline looks like a loser.
No, I don't think that you have to stay together. Well, but
I agree.
Like, you don't have to stay together with people you have kids with.
No, that's true, but that doesn't mean that Kevin Federline isn't a loser. I mean, he's a backup dancer. Yeah. He's not even the front up dancer. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna do the dancer, do the one in the front. You're gonna do a backup dancer. Okay, I mean, there's no audience, so like this is so when she whatever. Anyway, broke up with Kevin Federline. They got a divorce.
So they filed for divorce. Now they have children. So what did they do? We're not married yet. What did they do? They file for full custody. First, Britney.
Right. First, Britney files for full custody.
And then Kevin
Hart
files.
Kevin Federline.
Federline.
Got it. Sorry, Kevin Hart.
Files for full custody. Now, here's a realistic.
Well, sorry, I know you're about to get to the realistic perspective. What we need to frame first is the social narrative at the time.
Okay.
Was she filed for full custody to get her kids, and then he filed, right? And people are like, oh, what did she do wrong for him to file for full custody?
For full custody, a man filing for full custody of his children.
And you have to understand, this is like 20 years ago, so we need to keep the social framing in there. That's like, oh my God, like, what did she do wrong? For a man to want their kids, the woman must be a real fucking idiot. Like, that's the social narrative for back then. Nowadays, it's much more normal, but even now, what you were going to get into is that, like, people do it out of spite.
Yeah, the reality is that people are pieces of shit.
Yep. And they don't usually, I'm sorry, but they don't care about their kids first a lot of these times.
Not at all. I would say most of the time, especially when the children are extremely young, like babies, most of your actions is to go against your ex-partner. You know, like my parents did it. Like my mom filed for full custody because my dad was like an alcoholic and he was like, fuck you, you're not taking my kids. I'm going to file for full custody.
Yeah.
It's just a fight that people have to try to, you know, ruin the other's lives. And then they wind up not caring about the children anyway.
Yeah, and like I think part of it too is they're like, well, the kids are young, they won't remember, so who cares? But this has like a profoundly negative impact.
And what happens when you file for full custody, like it's of course better to meet in the middle, because if the person loses the full custody battle, then like their visitation opportunities also decrease.
Right, and what happened after this is what caused her to lose her visitation, in my opinion.
Well, yes. So Britney loses. I don't know if she had lost the custody to the kids. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but they're in the custody battle.
Right, and at this point now, there was already like an anti-Britney social narrative.
I don't think it was finished, the custody battle.
No, but what I'm
regardless,
saying,
is until your custody battle is done, like you have visitation, you're having shared custody of the of the children. So I would say that the major breaking point for Britney Spears started in this time. I believe that this is when she shaved her head. And, you know, for me growing up, like I loved Britney Spears, and I remember looking at the tabloids and like I never thought she was crazy, but
she certainly had a lot going on.
I wondered what was happening to her.
Yeah.
And now looking back at the shaved head incident, like it's extremely so sad. So what happened was like Britney went to the salon or whatever, and it was just some like crappy little salon, and she told the hairdresser like, I want to shave my head.
Right. And I want to stop here before we move forward, because this is the thing. The reason she wanted to shave her head was because she wanted to be less attractive. She wanted the media to stop, you know, being so into her. Honestly, right? Like that's a big thing.
I think it's important to say the specifics. She wanted to shave her head because she wanted people to stop touching her.
Right. Yeah. Right. So she wanted people to stop touching her. She wanted people to stop being so engaged with her, so involved with her. Nowadays, we call that being non-binary. I know I'm half kidding, but I'm half serious, right? So Demi Lovato has a very similar thing. She's tired of being so overly sexualized that she like shaved her head off, and she like identifies as non-binary. She isn't like fully a woman identity-wise. Now she's a they them, and I think that a lot of that has to do with like her being heavily sexualized as somebody that was in like, you know, what would you call it, a celebrity status.
I would compare it more to our good friend Trisha. And
no,
how
I
Trisha,
that would never. I would never compare Britney Spears to Trisha. That's that's the biggest insult you could ever have.
I know. I truly think it, because like Demi Lovato, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with her. She has a whole other bunch of issues. Trisha's worse,
like heroin.
But I think, exactly. Trisha has over-sexualized herself to the point that like she's literally like a walking blow-up doll, and no one respects her. And so she's so tired of herself that she thinks that she's trans, because I truly believe that she's assigning masculinity with like not being a walking sex doll.
Yeah, right. Like, so she associates femininity with being a walking blow-up doll, and that really fucks her up mentally. So she's like, I'm a man, because it makes her feel better to identify with not being a walking blow-up doll, like you said, like overly sexualized. Like she just really, and a normal person would just turn it off. Like, okay. Like, you know, turn work off. But it's hard. I was like, I want to turn work. Anyway. It's hard to turn work off, I guess, like when you're doing sex work.
Exactly. So the reason why I compare that to Britney Spears is because she, like you had said, like, she just wanted people to stop touching her. She was done with people, with being that person. And for her, like, shaving her head was that like symbol for her, like, stop touching me, you can't do this to me anymore.
And it was also her choice to cut her own hair.
It was her choice to cut her own hair, but further, she told the hairdresser that she wanted to shave her head, and the hairdresser said no.
Yeah, imagine, but can we just talk about imagine that?
And imagine I partly like understand, like, imagine you were the hairdresser that shaved Britney's head, the type of negative attention you would get.
It's true. No, it's true. Like, imagine, like, she's like, fucking, what do we call it? Liz Freeport shave Britney Spears' head off, and all of a sudden, you know, people are throwing hair at your house or something. I don't really know. But
so that's why she grabbed the razor and shaved her own head, because it's like, fuck you. If you're not going to do this, I'm doing it myself.
And it's like, oh, it's a big mental breakdown. But it's like, I don't even, like, nowadays.
I find it completely reasonable, though. It makes complete sense to me. I hate going to restaurants, especially Italian family-style restaurants, and the owners come over to you, and they think it's okay to put their hands on your shoulders and say, oh, how's everything going?
And then you got to say, get your hand off me, you fucking, you dirty meatball.
I turn around and I look at them and I say, don't touch me. Because
Yeah.
don't fucking touch me. So imagine Britney Spears every day.
You know what I said? Do you know
people's hands in their hair.
Do you know what I say to people who do that?
What do you say?
I said, "Do you want to fuck me?" And then they take their hand off me because they go, "No, I don't." I say, if somebody you can't do that as a woman, because they're like, "Hey, I got my sausage in the bag." You have to be a really ugly man, and you'd be like, "Sir, do you want to fuck me?" And if they're Italian, they go, "Hey," you know. Italian people like me, guys. Don't worry. It's okay. It's okay. But yeah, no. And she's just trying to make her own choice. And it's considered like this breakdown. And this all kind of compiles up because the social narrative is she's losing her mind. She's mistreating her kids. She just went crazy and cut all her hair off. And then I think that this really, really all kind of, it explodes at the point where there was a night where she just wanted to visit her kids. So I think her and her cousin went in a car. And they went to see Kevin Federline, douchebag backup dancer, and he wouldn't let her see her kids. So she was like upset, and she was just in her car, and she was just upset. And like paparazzi, two of them, one guy called another guy, got him over there at a gas station, and this is like the worst moment in her life. I could imagine it's like the worst.
Like imagine being denied to see your children.
Yeah,
like she just wanted to see them. She wasn't asking to take them.
No, but not even just denied to see your children. Imagine being denied to see your children because like everybody was fucking broadcasting every bad point in your life. Like, bro, like sit there and tell me that you haven't had like a bad day that you don't want people to see. Now imagine everybody saw it. Okay, imagine it, and then they're like, oh. Everybody has some shameful moments. Not everybody needs to see all your shameful moments. You can observe and go like, that was bad. I'm happy that people didn't see me when I was taking a shit on the toilet and then the toilet seat cracked and you know what I mean? Nobody needs to see that. Nobody needs to see the worst day of your life. And everybody was seeing the worst day of her life every single time, and she was just setting a new worst day of her life. All of a sudden, two paparazzi are like, Britney, how are you? Britney, how's everything going? And they're taking pictures of her.
And her cousin X, please do not do this.
Yeah, please stop. Please do not do this. And like watching the Free Britney, what was it called? We watched the documentary, the hour-long documentary.
It's on Hulu.
It's insane how the fucking guy was like, I was just asking her how she was doing, and she went off on me. And it's like, 'cause she got out of the car, and I think she started screaming at him.
No, she got out of the car, and she smashed his shit in with an umbrella.
Good. And he's like, oh, Britney, I'm just trying to ask how you're doing. Bro, no, you're not. Okay? You're sitting there treating her like a fucking zoo animal, taking pictures of her like, Britney, how are you? Britney, and like whatever she said, he was recording her, not just taking pictures. He was recording. Other guy was taking pictures. Whatever she said, he would make $1 million off of it. You know it. She could have said like, oh man, I'm having a bad time. Oh, I'm going to buy that video from you. Britney Spears having a bad time. All of a sudden, that's in the fucking tabloids. And these guys get paid a lot of money for these pictures. So I'm not even exaggerating when I'm saying this guy could have made $1 million off of her response. He didn't put the camera down. He didn't say like, Britney, let me have a real moment with you. Are you okay? He was recording her like a fucking caged animal, trying to get her to do a trick. Tell him something. Oh, how are you? And she lost her shit. And like, listen, should you get out of the car and start beating the shit out of somebody's car with an umbrella? No, but would I have done it? Yes, I probably would have done it. And I feel like we look at these things so like rigidly, where it's like, oh well, is this the acceptable response? Like, bro, every single day I live, I don't have like we all have unacceptable responses to everything. You know what I mean? And like, but hers are just broadcasted. So she lost her shit. She wasn't able to see her kids, which she like. Her kids, those are her kids. Like she probably loves her kids. She wasn't able to see her kids. She was having a really bad night. They were asked to like go away, and it was the audacity of that man to say, well, why didn't she just ask me not to do it? And like, bro, her fucking cousin did.
They literally did.
Yeah, they literally did.
So I think that, like, you know, through all this, it's important to acknowledge, like, the negative impact that the paparazzi had on her, like, exposing these moments in such, like, a negative light. I'm like, yeah, like, does she look crazy? Yeah, but yeah. I've lost my shit on things.
And it makes, and this all, understanding that this all, you know, 100% went into the court hearing. You know that this was like evident. Like, oh, look, Britney can't be a fit mother because she shaved her head.
So, like, at this time, I believe it was before she shaved. Mother. Before she shaved her head, but you kind of mentioned it before. She was hanging out with this guy, some guru.
Yeah.
And, you know, apparently, you know, according to her family, I believe it is, like, she was spending her money like irresponsibly.
Yeah.
It wasn't really said what she was spending her money on, but she was hanging out with this guy, like, and doing this with him. Just by her hanging out with, like, a guru, like, I don't necessarily, like, believe in life coaches or stuff like that personally, but to me, that's saying that Britney, like, sees that, like, there's some shit going on in her life that, like, she needs to get straight.
Right, and she's just looking, and she thinks a guru will do it, but it shows self-awareness.
It does. No. And, you know, like I said, we don't know what those financial, like, spendings were, but I think so, but that'll come in later because it was a reason that the conservatorship was established. Yes. But so the big, I don't know what to call it, the kicker that really got her in this mess is that one night, and this was after all this paparazzi stuff, one night she had her kids, and I guess Kevin or someone was coming to pick the two boys up. And she,
right, because I think she lost the case at that point.
She barricaded herself in her home with them.
Right, she didn't want to give up her kids.
And, you know, like, it's not right, but, like, I get it. You know, I could understand any parent, like, no matter what issue you have, you know, like, even, like, parents with substance problems, like, you know, I don't know, should I get personal? Like my dad used to come here,
trauma, you know?
And he like used to, I know, right? It is now. You gotta deal with it. He used to like cry at the front door to see us, like me and my brother, and like my mom wouldn't let him because he was like fucked up.
Right.
But you know, he wanted his children and he was upset about it.
Yeah, and I think that, like, I believe that was the case. That's the point that, like, lost. They made her.
Was because
that's what pushed
after
her.
That, they put her in inpatient psych.
Yes. So, and it was against her will. I don't think she checked herself in.
No, they said that, or was that the later one?
No, I think that.
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, anyway, so this situation, she should have obviously given up the kids, but like most of the other situations happening. I'm very burpy today. Most of the situations happening, like this was a reasonable, like this was like a somewhat expected thing. Like if you're not upset by losing your kids, like then you're a worthless parent, you know.
But not to excuse the behavior.
No, and not to excuse the behavior, but then it being used against her, like. I feel like that, you know, to put her in like a mental health institution. I'm pretty sure that I think that they had asked her to go into it themselves.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. I believe she was put inpatient at another time, and they were like, "Oh, like she signed herself in." It was like voluntary, like whatever. But way, regardless,
due to everything,
I don't agree. I do think that like this is like a negative. Like that act was like a negative reflection of like her as a parent.
Yeah.
So I would understand that being taken into consideration in a custody hearing.
But this all culminated into like. Introducing the conservatorship, where she basically lost the ability for her to have her own agency over herself.
Yeah, so after this inpatient psych stay, the conservatorship was established. That Britney was unfit to take care of herself, her finances. She was spending irresponsibly with this guru guy.
And I feel like, and I remember she said something like that it seemed like she didn't want the conservatorship, but she felt like it was a pathway to get her kids back. So she consented to it, but she just didn't want the dad to be part of it. And before we get into the dad part, it's a little bit shitty that, like, I don't know how it was introduced, but this woman felt like the only way to see her kids was to give up agency over herself. And I think that's a lot. And I think it shows, like, one, a deep love for her children. And two, very clearly, again, self-aware. She's like, I want my kids. They matter more than anything else. I will go into this conservatorship without bitching and moaning and crying because my kids are number one. And it seems like we're seeing a consistent pattern of Britney Spears being self-aware and then being pushed into a space where she's considered not self-aware. Like, she is self-aware, but it's like, but now you need to be part of the conservatorship because you're not aware. It's insane. And I think at the very least, it would. I don't know. And this gets into the question of the dad because everybody hates the dad. And it's like, well, why did she hate the dad? And I wonder why, honestly. I mean, part of it's probably because he wasn't there. Part of it, I think, though, is here's the thing. I remember when we watched the documentary, she was saying some things. I forget what they were, but where it felt like she was a little bit probably adopting some of the characteristics of her dad, being a bit controlling.
Yeah, no, it was, I mentioned it a little bit earlier when she was a teenager and she was getting like interviews about her work and everything. She would, kind of be like, well, like, I'm in charge of this. I make these decisions about that. And she kind of had, I don't know. I asked you about it. I was like, come here and watch this clip and like, look at her face. And there was something that like, I didn't like. Like the way she was expressing herself, like she seemed to be very unhumble.
Yeah, probably not super humble about it. Here's my thing. I think that like one of the aspects of why she didn't want her dad controlling her stuff is because her dad was controlling, but then so was she. And I don't think that she wanted to give up. I don't think that she wanted to have like the dad who had a strong personality interfere with her own. Like, I think she also had a strong personality. I think that she was a daddy's girl.
I don't agree with you at all.
Why?
I know that your situation is a little bit more drastic.
You have to agree with me.
No, I don't agree with you at all.
I'm just kidding. Oh my god.
I was ready to fucking fight. I was ready to go at it.
I was like, you have to agree with me, and then she wants to kill me. So help me, please.
Don't help him.
Jesus Christ. Psychotic. All right. So anyway,
like your situation is more drastic, but
what situation?
Imagine like you like having a bunch of money, going a little cuckoo, and then your dad coming in and being like, "Oh, I'm gonna."
Well, so there is a little bit of a difference. Like
there is a bit.
Okay, so her dad didn't like leave her.
Her dad was like an absent father.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's an absent father who seemed to be trying to make money for the family. And then what happened is they had to get like a proxy to go tour with her. And so like both parents were absent to a pretty reasonable extent. But I wouldn't necessarily consider that an absent father. Because like, okay, yes, they sent her off. They shouldn't have done this. They sent her off with somebody else to go get famous because they wanted to take care of the kid at home. Shitty idea. But like, it doesn't come from a place of like, abandonment. It comes from a place of like, oh, we want what's best for our kid. Part of it's a financial factor because they want their kid to succeed. But it's not the same as my dad who left my mom 5 months pregnant and then came back to the hospital, pretended like they were still together, and then literally not caring about me at all. So I feel like it's a very different situation to compare the two of those.
It is, but I think that you're like the idea of like the absent father. I was trying to get you. You'll agree with me.
No, but I think that you're not understanding what I'm saying. Is like I understand. I know. Okay, I know what you're saying, that there's an absent father aspect. What I'm saying is, why was he absent? The reason he was absent is because he kept trying to. He had failed business ventures, but he was trying to support his family. Obviously, he was an alcoholic. And then they sent her away so they could take care of her other kid. Now, a lot of these are terrible decisions, especially sending her off with the proxy and not with their own kid. But this doesn't mean that like he himself is a bad person. Her interpretation of the situation might align with what you're saying, but I don't think that it's fair to remove his interpretation of the situation out of convenience.
You asked the question, why was he absent? I asked you the question, why is he present?
Why is he
for money?
No, but stop.
No. No, don't you hold on me. You hold on.
So you're telling me he never cared about her ever?
No.
Substantiate the claim.
He was absent. He was an alcoholic.
Why was he absent?
He was having failed businesses.
Okay, but again, but why was he
involved in her shit?
Okay, but again, why was he having failed business ventures? I'm not saying that based on Britney Spears' interpretation that he's not a scumbag. I'm saying I fucking
hate when you say it.
I'm just saying that to me this seems like a desperate father trying to provide for his family. Now, he doesn't seem to be super emotionally available, but that's not exactly the hottest. Like, that's not exactly abnormal back then.
His income being her conservator is $16,000 a week.
Okay.
It is more than half of what her allowance is.
Okay, no. But no. But before we get into what's happening now, we have to get into what's happening then.
Okay, no.
No. Hold on. If you're hold on. I'm sorry. If your argument, if you're saying, hey, listen, he might be keeping it going now for the money, that I'm not going to say that I disagree with necessarily. That's something to explore. But to say that the only reason he became the conservator was for money, I feel like maybe that's a little unfair.
What reason is the conservatorship in place aside from the financial? This is my thing that
irritates me. She had a fucking meltdown.
Listen to me. Who cares if she had a meltdown? She already had her kids taken away, so what is the only thing at risk? Her money.
I don't understand your point.
Point...
Who should have been the conservator?
She doesn't need a conservator.
No. Listen. Okay, I agree. I agree with you 100%. But we need to keep this in perspective of what's going on at the time.
I am.
No, we're not. Because right now it's very easy for us, like 20 years later, for us to hold on to very easily prescribe today's morals to like 10, 20 years ago. Right? Now, we're right. But 20 years ago, yeah, the meltdown was
like
because
10 years ago.
Okay, whatever. Fucking 10 years ago, we know we made a lot of social change. You know that. It was an objective fact. And it was 13 years ago. But who's counting? Anyway, we need to be careful about overly prescribing today's morals to the past. I think she got a raw deal and she got fucked. But back then, I genuinely think that the dad was probably thought this was in her best interest.
I truly believe that it's in the best interest of the money.
What does that mean?
Because back then, 13 years ago, Kevin has custody of the children. So Britney's just going crazy by herself. What is the only thing at risk?
I don't know. Her
money.
What is ever the only thing at risk? It's not just her money though. We saw her publicly melt down. Again, it wasn't her fault, but back then people thought it was her fault. So now you have concerned parents that are like, okay, what the fuck's going on? I don't think that she has the ability to run her own shit. Now they're wrong, in my opinion. But do we really think that this was some kind of a conspiracy theory to get her money away from her? Or do we think that maybe the parents did give a shit about her, even if the dad does it in the wrong way?
I think it was all for the money.
I disagree. I just don't think that you could. I don't think you could substantiate that claim.
Just because there's like no other good reason. They're conservative.
She's going insane.
No, okay. Exactly. But conservatorship doesn't need to be established for someone to go through inpatient mental health treatment or even outpatient mental health treatment.
Okay.
You don't need to establish a conservatorship for that with two conservators. Okay. It's one thing to say like, hey, you're going fucking nuts. I'm moving into your house and, you're my fucking daughter and you're going to keep your shit in track. You're going to go to this treatment. You're going to do this and this. Mm-hmm. Not saying, hey, I'm going to put myself in charge of all of your finances so you can't fucking do anything by yourself or make your own business decisions.
Right. Do you think that the dad was the only person who thought the conservatorship was a good idea?
No.
So there you go. Like we're forgetting that the judge granted a conservatorship.
Yeah, but you don't think that the judge is not influenced by the outside perspective?
Hold on. The outside perspective of what?
That she's like fucking going nuts and like.
Okay, right there. Let's stop right there. So what you're saying is that the judge was most likely influenced by the public opinion on Britney Spears.
Yes.
So why can't the father also be experiencing that as well? I'm not saying that conservatorship was right. I'm simply saying I don't think that even if he is a scumbag, which he seems to be, I don't think that he was doing it just for the money. I think that he genuinely cared about his daughter. And now that it's continuing on, now I think that there's an argument to be made about he wants to maintain this salary or this allowance. For sure. I think so. But to say like it's purely always been about the money, I feel like that's kind of a shitty thing. I do.
No, I don't think that someone could do something like this when they genuinely care.
I just feel why? Why do you feel like this is the most abusive thing in the world?
I don't think it's the most abusive thing in the world.
But that's how you framed it. You're like, nobody could ever think that a conservatorship is. If you saw your daughter going through a mental breakdown, shaving all her fucking head off, like her hair off, I think that I would understand why a parent would be concerned.
Yes.
And then blowing your money on some fucking bullshit life guru who was probably selling her falsehoods.
Yeah, but like, what is she fucking? But like, what is the
Why is
risk
he
of
innocent?
her doing that? He's not innocent. He's some fucking scammer.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a guru.
Okay, so maybe the parents didn't want her to be scammed by a fucking guru and sell her bullshit.
But like, what does it matter?
Why does anything matter? Your whole argument is Britney had a lot of money, so the dad shouldn't have given a shit about her.
That's not what I said at all.
You're saying the only thing at risk is Britney Spears spending money.
The only thing that was protected in all this is her fucking money.
Right? No, though. But that's wrong because she's not. So the conservatorship would be protecting her as well by not allowing her to make all these crazy decisions.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the conservatorship is a good thing. I'm just saying. I simply put, all I'm saying is I think that it's unreasonable to paint the dad out as like a pure bad guy that never cared about his daughter.
And I'm honestly judging you for your opinion.
Is there something I'm missing?
You're like talking like this guy is like fucking innocent.
No, I'm not. I never said that. You're getting too emotionally involved.
I am emotionally involved.
You're too emotionally involved with your perspective. My perspective is I don't think that the exclusive sole reason that he advocated for a conservatorship was for the money. I think that he did care about his daughter. And he engaged in a conservatorship. Now, hold on. Hold on. Chill out. Does that mean that the conservatorship was right? No. Does it mean that the financial factor is completely excused? No. But I don't think that dad just popped back in to say, hey, give me your money, Britney. Like, let's keep in mind that they paid for somebody to go out with their daughter to go and chaperone her while she got famous because they wanted her to get famous. They stayed home. They took care of it. Did the dad divorce the mom?
I don't know.
Okay, probably not. So, like, this whole idea that he hates his fucking family and that he only cares about the money, I think it's incorrect.
So maybe to frame it a little different.
You mean, okay, go for it.
I think he cared about Britney Spears.
You're just saying the same thing.
Well, yeah, but
maybe I think he cared about his daughter. I think that he cared about his daughter. I that's literally my whole point. I'm not saying that he didn't do part of it for the money. I think he cared about his daughter.
All right. Well, we
forgot to talk about the one thing where she was getting like shit on for hanging out with Lindsay Lohan and all those fucking. Go ahead. Yeah. I know you want to talk about that.
So I believe it was after. I don't know at what point in the timeline this was, but there was a period of time where she was hanging out with people like Lindsay Lohan, Paris Hilton,
Anna Nicole.
You know, the big names.
Not
Anna.
No. What's the other one? The one that did Paris Hilton, Nicole Richie.
Oh, Nicole Richie.
There you go.
And you know that was another thing where we said another example where like the same thing when they were like, Kevin filed for full custody. It was like, Britney is hanging out with Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, right.
Now, Lindsay Lohan, she's a hot fucking mess. And that's why it was like a thing that Britney was hanging out with her. But Lindsay Lohan was a child star with an extremely abusive father who was going through shit. And she chose to go through it with alcohol and drugs. And she really went from, like Parent Trap, like the little like cute ginger girl, to being like this fucking like drugged out hot mess. Yeah. And so, for Britney to be like associating herself with her was like representative of like who she was.
Right. Yeah. Which is inappropriate to do that, but again, this all lends to the narrative that Britney's losing control, and then as a father, maybe the dad just wanted I think that part of it was like she's losing control. I know this all goes with the controlling thing. I think his perspective was like she's losing control. I know what's better for her, even if he doesn't. I'm going to take control. I'm going to do the conservatorship. That's what I think it comes down to. Now there's still conservatorship going on. Part of it might really be he wants to maintain his money, right? But I don't really know. There was an article that came out where like he abused one of Britney Spears' kids or something. What had happened? This was the framing of the article. The article was like, the kid wasn't doing something that the dad
wanted. They were involved in a physical altercation.
Yeah, the kid didn't do something that his grandpa wanted him to do. He locked himself in the room, so the dad, I guess, took the door off the room or something. I don't know, and yelled at him. And like they were talking about the media narrative is fuck the dad, but like, I mean, is the dad the worst thing in the world? I don't know. I'm not saying Britney Spears isn't a victim of all these different like situations of circumstance. I'm just saying I don't think the dad is as bad as everybody wants him to seem. I think that he's really just more of a hard ass, controlling hard ass. Britney, I mean, like, if not for nothing, but none of this would have happened if the paparazzi didn't, like, rob her of her fucking individuality and identity and her ability to, like, be a normal person.
Mm-hmm. I think we disagree on her father, and I don't think that we'll come to an agreement with that.
Maybe not.
But I think that we can.
There might also be more information that we're not educated on.
Very true.
Help, you know what I mean? That would probably help, you know?
Oh, well, okay, so let's get into it still being established 13 years later, because we could probably agree with those things. So, you know, mine kind of goes back to, like, you know, Kevin has full custody. You know, Britney does see her kids. She posts, you know, hanging out with them on Instagram and whatnot.
And by the way, the Instagram was what kind of, like, dialed the paparazzi down off of her, because she was able to, like, push herself out on Instagram. And apparently, like, all these people, the free Britney fucking kooks, which turned out to be right, they were, like, deciphering her social media. She used a smiley face instead of an emoji smiley face. She must be in trouble.
So that was the second psych thing.
Yes,
because they were like, oh, Britney always uses emojis.
The first one, I think she put herself into psych. The second one,
the first one was after the kid thing, and then the second one, I don't remember what happened.
I think that they put her into psych. She didn't want to go,
but
they put her in.
Like, there was an Instagram post with her, you know, with just, like, the semicolon and parentheses for a smiley face instead of an emoji. So the Free Britney people, their, like, radar was going off. And then a couple of days or something later, it came out that she was an inpatient again. But it was voluntary because she signed herself in.
Yeah, okay.
Which, like, it's not fucking voluntary.
Sure.
If you have the person that's in control of all your shit saying you need to sign your name here or whatever,
right?
Like,
Yeah, for sure.
But, you know, like, it was nuts. Like, there was a period of when, like, you would see, like, comments be like, okay, Britney, like, wear yellow in, like, the next video if you need help, and, like, the bitch would fucking wear yellow. Like, it was fucking, like, it was nuts.
That's crazy.
It was nuts. We gotta find that stuff.
Here's what I think, because I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about.
I, like, lost what I was saying.
We were just talking about how, like, the conspiracy, that the true conspiracy of Britney Spears being, like, fucking held captive.
I was talking about it being still established today. One of my biggest things is that this is something, a conservatorship is something that's put in place typically for older people with dementia. Yeah. People who lose that ability to care for themselves. I know, like, there's HIPAA violations and all of that stuff. Like, there's things you need to keep private. But there has never once been, like, the release of a diagnosis for her.
That's fair. Yeah, sure. Yeah, good point. So there's no diagnosis. That makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense. I didn't actually think about that.
You know, they actually talked a lot, which we skipped over, but they talked, like, after her kids, like, having postpartum depression.
Sure.
You know, and that lends to it a lot.
I forgot that's a factor, too.
That makes a lot of sense is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, like, that she would, part of her, like, breakdown is that she has postpartum depression and, like, nobody to fucking help her move through it.
But that's also, that, like you were saying, like, keep in mind, like, values today. That was not a thing that you talked about back then.
Sure, yeah. That's a good point.
You know, like, a lot of mothers, I feel like that's, like, new in the last couple of years. You know, like, even when my cousin had her kid, like, I think he was, like, 1 or 2, and me and her were, like, talking, and she's like, you know, like, she told me about, like, symptoms she was having after she had a kid, and I was even like, oh, like, I didn't even know this, like, was a thing.
Yeah, like, your hormones get all fucked up. You know, that makes sense.
But yeah, so there's been no psych diagnosis released for her, and I feel like, especially today, now, like I said, like, that's HIPAA protected information. Like, we don't need to know people's health business, but I feel like with the Free Britney movement, and that's the sad thing about being famous, like, there's sometimes where you do owe the public some personal information.
I think that,
you know,
like,
what I'm saying?
what you're saying is, like, we're not privy to her mental health diagnosis, but it's weird that we haven't heard about a mental health diagnosis, because, like, what's the foundation of the conservatorship if that she doesn't have a mental health diagnosis? And then what is it? Because there's a lot of people with different diagnoses, and you don't see any of them with conservatorships. I think fundamentally, for the most part, a conservatorship is it. I think that, like, I understand why people that, like, fully have lost their mind would get it, but this seemed to be overprescribed regardless.
It seems to be overprescribed because, like, think about people in your everyday life, and if this wasn't Britney Spears, like, I feel like everyone needs to lose custody of their children and have, like, people in charge of them.
Yeah, right. Like if it wasn't Britney Spears, we wouldn't have been doing this. If this was just like Cindy down the block, we would have just be like, it's a crazy bitch. You know.
And even in the what was it? I think this last Wednesday or the Wednesday before is when they had the most recent trial, and that's when she disclosed things like she felt
the IUD
abused, that she has an IUD in that she chose to put in.
Yes, but they won't let her take it out.
But her father won't let her take it out.
But who's she gonna have kids with?
And she's also she does have a boyfriend, I believe, or she had. But that was another Instagram thing, and I looked it up because I wanted to talk about it today, but I can't fucking find it. There's this guy. I think he's like this young Hispanic. I think he's Hispanic. I don't know, but this like hot guy. I don't find him attractive.
Thanks for telling me.
I really don't find him
I
attractive.
don't care. I'm just gonna keep going. Yeah.
He there was a video of them dancing or something, because that's what she does. She's a fucking nut job on Instagram. Like, it's embarrassing to watch. But
she's very cringy on Instagram.
She's cringy. And there's a video like where they're dancing, and like you see him like nudge her and be like, smile, and then she starts smiling. Yes, and I can't find it.
That's fucking.
And there was like rumors that like he was her boyfriend, and then it became like, I feel like almost like a body shaming type of thing too, because it was like, why is he with her? And then it was rumored that like he was like part hired and like part of this conservatorship.
So you're saying that like, okay, so that like there's a conspiracy narrative out there. They're saying of like trying to make things look normal by her having a boyfriend.
I think so.
Crazy.
But that's what I said. Like, I looked it up. Like, I looked up Britney smile video Instagram and like all stuff like that, and I couldn't find it.
I'm sorry. Here's what I want to say here, because I think that we're at a good end point time, right? I don't think there's anything else to be said. I say get rid of the conservatorship, and one of two things will happen. Either she'll be happy and she'll be free and she was normal all along, or she's going to have a fucking meltdown, boy. And I think that there's going to be I think that if she's freed, I think she's going to go a bit cuckoo.
I mean, you already see it. You know, I think her Instagram is fucking weird. And I think that's because, like, she has been locked down for so long. And, like, the personality that she's expressing is that bubblegum 16-year-old Britney.
Right, yeah. But here's the thing is that, like, now, even if they get rid of the conservatorship and she's all, like, everything, if she has a meltdown now, we don't know how much of that's because she's been fucking cooped up for 13 years living as a fucking adult child.
But her father said, like, it's okay because she could travel and do things.
Yeah, no. At the end of the day, here's the thing. She has enough agency to make her own decisions. She's aware of enough to make her own decisions. She might be considered eccentric. If she makes them, let her make her own decisions. Like you said before, what's she going to fuck up? Money. Let her fuck up her money. Who gives a shit? Who gives a damn? I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. Maybe she'll give me some. I don't know. It'd be cool. Free Britney so she can give me money.
She deserves to be freed. I think the conservatorship is wrong. And if the judge goes through with it, you know, he's really, or they, I don't know who the judge is, they're basing their decision too much on like public.
That you said they.
They're basing their decision too much on public opinion rather than the person that they're supposed to be making the decision to protect.
Sure. Funny enough, now they're making it based on public opinion again to free Britney, which is probably a good thing. So now we have like, oh, when is it a good thing? When is it a bad thing? Maybe 10 years from now, we'll be like, oh, we never should have freed her. And then we'll be back here again. That'll be the Real Papa Gut podcast, episode 1000. Free Britney updated. She went ballistic and
put her back.
Put her back. Unfree Britney. She punched a girl for a bag of grapes. Like, that's what's gonna happen. Britney Spears is gonna go fucking ballistic in a supermarket and punch somebody for a bag of green grapes. Because nobody likes red grapes.
No.
Anyway, guys, thanks for stopping by to the rebirth of the Real Papa Gut podcast. Give the microphone a kiss. Mwah. No, you have to kiss. Mwah. No, you have to kiss the microphone.
Mwah.
Beautiful. Bye, guys. Hey, everyone. If you liked that video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to follow my Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, and TikTok. All links are in the description. Also, check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me even more than you already do. Thank you so much, everyone. I love you all.